When I told Eli that I was leaving the choice for our next film review entirely in his hands, I assumed that some amount of vengeance would enter into his decision-making process.
And it did.
But I could not have imagined what kind of horrible crucible of passive entertainment he had unearthed with Kirk Cameron's 2008 masterwork of scenery chewing Fireproof. Now, for the last 24 hours or so, I've been struggling to formulate an introduction that would do justice to the absolute horror that was this film, and the best I can come up with in a sentence is that it was like 2 hours of watching the non-fucking parts of porn. Just for the acting.
The dude's face, the expressions, how...
And, of course, to help guide us through this cinematic chart is my good friend Eli Bosnick. Eli, welcome back.
Hey, Noah, thanks for having me.
Anytime, sir. So after having watched this movie, do you think this was a good decision on your part or a bad decision?
This is the best decision I have ever made. Let me tell you, I have turned down meth, and I have not fucked a girl who it turned out was HIV positive, and watching this movie is the best decision I've ever made. This is the best decision right here.
We are,
despite sidestepping AIDS, just barely. That's
even better.
Good
All right,
stuff.
now, it's really horrifying to me that we can actually all three make sort of a qualified judgment here, but where would you guys rank Fireproof compared to Kirk Cameron's other cinematic offerings?
Oh.
This is one of his...
It's not as good as Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas because there's a plot and more than two characters, but it's good in other ways. It's like, you can't compare like Sunset Boulevard and Raging Bull. It's like, they're different films.
That's what it's like. Yeah.
That's exactly what it's like.
That's what it's like for me. It's like it's like, oh, do I want to eat dog shit or do I want to eat human shit? I don't know. Kind of mood am I in?
A little closer in the analogy there. And, of course, suffering alongside us throughout was our very own Heath then, right? Heath, how bad was this movie?
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic, just like Eli said. I think you're misrepresenting it a little bit. We're about to get into it. It was, packed with. He's a fireman, and it's in Georgia. It's very exciting.
Actually, yeah, just down the road from where we are. It was set in Albany, Georgia. So I guess we should start where the movie starts, because
I want to marry Daddy.
Yes, that's really the opening scene. So we have this weird little flashback.
Yeah. Nobody's going to get it unless we flash back 25 years and explain how this kid existed.
Exactly. And that's it. That's all we're going to get from this flashback.
That's it. But it's not just that. It's not like, oh, they're setting up something later. It's supposed to be a flashback of the wife as a child, I assume. And the first thing is, I want to marry Daddy. And by the way, we don't see these humans. There's just like shots of a childhood bedroom. Because again, Kirk Cameron was sitting in his basement and he was like, damn it, they won't get it. Honey, get out of your room. Daddy's going to film. And so it's just really bad ADR of like, you can't marry Daddy. Can I marry him when you're done with him? And it's just like, this is so inappropriate. It's just this movie I wrote in big letters on my notepad. This movie starts with marrying Daddy. That's the level of crazy this movie begins at.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's the premise. Yep.
Yes. And I kind of thought like maybe we were going for the cliche, Daddy's going to die here. But no, there was just nothing going on there whatsoever except for us to understand that once long ago this character was younger than she now is.
And desired to marry her father.
Right, yes, exactly. There was probably some inappropriate touching going on, or maybe that was just supposed to be implied. And then, having no fucking idea why we were in this flashback in the first place, we cut to the opening credits, and very quickly we sort of get this vague impression, something about firemen or a fire station or every cliche fire thing that you can possibly throw into an opening montage.
Oh, yeah. No, not only is it like, firemen working to be fireman, fire know what the fireman can. The first time they talk,
yes,
they talk as though, by the way, just in case you're wondering if you haven't seen this movie, there are 4 humans in this movie. 4. Because this fire squad consists of 4 people. Yeah. It is the world's smallest fire squad.
Well, compared to all the action that they see, yeah.
Right. So the beginning thing is like the black guy, one of the sassy black guys, is mad at the fat white guy who later disappears, but never mind. And he's like, Hey man, you gonna I'm double duper now.
He did, absolutely. Just cliche black guy thing.
I wrote down black guy thing! Exclamation. That's my note on that.
So he's mad at him, and then Kirk Cameron turns to him and goes, "Hey man, you got to be more careful. That call for help was coming from outside of the house." And I was like, "Wait, what? Who was outside of the house being like, help me? No, help me, man."
Fuck all that fire shit.
That's what he says. That the call for help is coming from outside the house. Who calls from out? Help! Help! The house is burning down. I'm nowhere near it. Safe and sound. I'm at the back of this ambulance, covered in a blanket.
It's
So
way
again,
too warm under this blanket. And then, of course, you get the clumsiest foreshadowing in history with the exclamation from Kirk that you never leave your partner.
Never leave your man behind. Never leave your
very
partner
subtle.
behind. And they speak the first 10 minutes of this movie. People speak entirely in exposition, like they were tortured, like they were Homeland style tortured to only speak in exposition. Just like, well, you know, as my friend of 10 years and fellow pilot, that I enjoy salt-baked potatoes. I do. Please don't shock my balls again.
I would have taken a shock in the balls over that. So, yeah, we meet him. He's a fireman. And then, of course, we switch over to meet his career-oriented wife, who was too busy to shop, apparently.
And she, of course, meets Dr. McSexy. And you could tell, again, these movies, the crazy thing about this is every time I review one of these movies, I'm like, and then the black people. And I'm like, someone is going to listen to this and be like, Eli's a racist. It's not.
No.
These movies are so fucking racist that when I describe the actions, I feel like I should be wearing a hood because it's just like, all the black characters do this. So she's talking to the other doctor, and he's like, "You can call me Gabriel," which, by the way, is totally fine and appropriate in the workplace.
Right.
And all of the black nurses look at each other like, And I wrote down, sassy black nurses do not approve of first names.
Yeah, them black folks sure do be gesticulating in this flick. Every black person that delivers a line, their head is bobbing, their hands are waving in circles and whatnot. They're doing the around the world and back snap. Yeah.
One of them was actually tap dancing while unbelievable.
And also, this white woman who is staring into the middle distance as though she ate a bucket of chalk, has nothing but sassy black friends. Her job, by the way, is apparently to get reporters to come to the hospital.
I guess.
Because that's all she's like, I've got another interview about the hospital? What happened?
Right.
It's never a good thing.
How
when
many
there's
people are you killing here?
Exactly. Another interview at the hospital. Doctor, are you ready for your interview? It's like, that guy killed someone.
It's more than likely, yeah.
Then she goes and visits Stroke Mom.
Oh, God, it was so stupid. What the hell was that scene even there for?
Stroke Mom, who never comes back and doesn't. Well, actually, sorry. Stroke Mom kind of comes back at the very end. Stroke Mom is sitting in her chair. She's now mute, I assume, from the stroke. And she turns to her and she goes, "I miss you." And this mute person, who has apparently just lost the ability to speak, is like, that's the meanest thing in the world. Someone's mute and you're like, "Man, I wish you were alive." Mom had a stroke. She's not dead.
But
she
she
just
wants.
rose for Emily. Does Dad just have her propped in the chair?
Taxidermied or something like that, yeah. No, but we learned very early on, because there is nothing subtle in this movie, that all she really wants is a hospital bed and a wheelchair for her mom. That'll cost about $24,300.
$1,000.
It's a nice ass wheelchair. That's
Right.
got
So real. That wheelchair.
V6
They better like
turbo.
bring her back to life. Like, you can get a transformer for less. Is she riding around in Optimus Prime? Autobots. Oh, sorry, Karen. You're gonna have to. Well, we can go to bath time later. I've got to assemble the Autobots. So
That would have
then,
been such a better
an
movie.
80-year-old stroke victim as one of the Autobots in the crew.
it would be amazing,
I would watch
but
that cartoon.
not in a Transformer. Just like Autobots assemble, and she's like, Karen pooped again. Well, no, Bumblebee, you're gonna do it. Because I did it last. I'm a mega truck, and you're just like a car thing. You change her. It's gross. It's gross. I want to give up on humans.
This movie really just like, I mean, I was writing shit in my notes like, please be a different movie for a minute. Just for a minute. Give me anything else for just a minute and then
Just
come
cut it,
back to this.
Goonies.
And if you want to just to try to give the audience that's listening that have the good sense not to watch this movie a sense of how bad this is, we're talking about what we've talked about in the last 10 minutes or so, pre-edit, is about the first 3.5 minutes of this film.
Yeah, no, this is 45 seconds of absurdity
Right.
we're now covering. And then, so they finally we see the husband and wife together, and they have the world's weirdest fight that starts instantly over nothing and ends with him screaming in her face. It's literally, that's a common occurrence. She like puts the milk away because he left it out while he's getting the cereal, and he turns back, and instead of being like, actually, I was going to use the milk, he's like, you fucking bitch. And then doesn't eat cereal. He's like, well, she put the milk away. I'm having a power bar.
But then they get really, really angry and yell at each other, but don't even remotely cuss, which is always fun to listen to.
Oh yeah, the peak of their rage. He's like, you cut it out. You cut it out, rootin' tootin' home.
Not even as close as Yosemite Sam would get to cussing these guys. And what I also love is how the problems in life boil down to simple shit like he wants a boat and she wants more shelves in the closet.
Which is, again, an insane thing to say. Like, well, maybe if you weren't setting aside a quarter of your pay for your boat. And it's like, there was a definite, until we get to the porn later, which I'll come to, the idea that like things that destroy marriages are the fact that people want boats.
Right.
Like that was a bad thing. Everyone in this movie, if the reality of this movie is true, it is a selfish bad thing to want to have your own activities and life. It's like, I thought I'd have a boat. You selfish son of a bitch.
But now you've already brought up the porn, which was an amazingly large part of this movie that was devoted to, like, I could not have possibly imagined that we were going to spend this much time on the story arc of Kirk Cameron's character's internet porn addiction.
And I wanted it, and it was out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was out of nowhere. I didn't, because she was like, you're always looking at boats. And he was, by the way. Every shot of him not talking to someone already, he's looking at a giant children's book about boats. He's looking at, it's newspaper-sized giant book that says boats across the front. Lest our audience forget, he's into boats. But the internet porn comes out of nowhere. He's on the computer, which, by the way,
his Apple IIe over there.
Made. That movie is... The computer takes up half the room.
Right.
He's got to put punch cards into it. And he's on a website about boats, and he gets a porn pop-up that just says, wanna see. That's the porn pop-up. It's not like, dick slugging slugs. It's wanna see. I'd be like, I don't have any idea. Boats? Do I want to see boats? And it's just a fully dressed woman looking at the screen.
It's
wanna
not
see?
an attractive one or anything.
It is not an attractive. There is no porn. I mean, I have been deep into the world of internet porn, and that woman would not be allowed. Would not be allowed. You have to go on RedTube like the rest of the world. Matt. You do not get a pop-up.
No. I love the shot though when they show like he's mousing towards the pop-up, but then he stops, and then he has his finger over the left click, but his finger goes up, but it doesn't go down.
Right,
and he
like
stops.
like the bad guy assassin who's got his gun, his finger on the trigger, and he's got the guy in his sights, but he's just waiting for the good guy to show up and save him. He's like, I'm gonna shoot you any second.
And then he right clicks, click. I'm ready.
Right, he's got the liar moment of like, they're fighting his hand.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was the most awkward shit. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves in the plot here. We haven't even met smiley black best friend guy.
Michael,
yes.
who speaks entirely in platitudes. And fun fact, I went over the movie again to make sure this is true. Kirk Cameron's character at no point responds to anything that comes out of Michael's mouth. He talks, they take turn talking, but Michael will be like, I think I'd like some raspberry juice. She just doesn't respect me. I kept waiting for Michael to be like, hey man, you listening to what the fuck I'm saying? because he just declares statements that are in no way related to what Michael just said. Michael will be like, "You got him." And so this is the first 3 lines of Michael's. I wrote them down. My marriage wasn't broken. I just didn't know how to run it.
Yes.
Woman is like a rose.
Yes. Oh my God.
And I just wrote down, "Oh, good, another magic Negro who speaks in nonsense."
I wrote down black guy has clever flower analogy. That's what I
Where
had
it's
there.
just a guy being like, "Somebody dope give it a cop nibbity." If Michael had spoken entirely in scat, Kirk Cameron's lines would have changed not at all.
Nope.
You'd just been like, "She doesn't respect." By the way, the first shot of them, they're working out.
Yes.
They're just exercising, and then he stops, apropos of nothing, and goes, "It ain't working, Michael." At which point I would have been like, "Hey man, can we work out?"
Yeah, he's got his 73-pound boom box sitting next to him playing.
Enormous.
And then they go back and they fight again. This is now a second fight where she calls him selfish, and he makes the very valid point of, he's like, "Really? I save lives for myself? I pull children out of a lake for myself?" At which point I stood up and said, "I pull children out of a lake for myself."
Well, and this fight is precipitated by the fact that he gets home and there's no pizza left for him, and they don't have kids or anything, so it's just her, and she's eating an entire extra large fucking pizza by herself. I mean, like, I'd be kind of pissed if I come home and Lucinda did that, just because I wouldn't want to be in the bedroom with her farting like hell for the rest of the goddamn night after scarfing down an extra large pizza in the hour and a half it took me to fucking go work out.
Right, exactly. The other thing, too, is, like, these people, all of their fights are about, like, missed timing or not understanding. It's like, fucking text. Like, this is not a problem of the marriage. This is just like, "Hey, ordering pizza, want some? No, thanks." But that's it. That's how they solve their marriage. It's all of their problems. But instead he comes home and he's like, "You fucking whore. How didn't you save me half a pizza?" And then they fight, and he does the weird yelling in her face. The boat gets mentioned twice in the fight, by the way.
The internet porn comes up again.
And by the way, they were fighting over Georgia pizza. I'm having that right now. It's ridiculous that they're fighting over Georgia pizza. Anyway, moving on.
Basically a Triscuit with cheese sauce.
Yes, exactly.
But it's in here in 30 minutes or less, or it's free.
No, just take your time and make it better. Just please.
And then, so they have the fight. He goes outside, and then we have the beginning of our first running joke. Because he's beating up the trash can, and the neighbor's outside.
Mr. Rudolph.
Mr. Rudolph. All right. More than anything in the world, if I had 3 wishes, 3 of them would be a spin-off movie about the Rudolphs, who are an atheist couple who fucking hate each other, but they hate their neighbors more. And it's just, we see the scenes, and then he goes inside, and he's like, "That motherfucker next door, you know the crazy one? Yeah, the one who's always jerking off to boats? He's out there taking shit out of his trash can." And his wife's like, "Really? What the fuck's the matter with him?" "Oh, God knows. I don't know. Not pounding that sweet, sweet wife of his."
Pretty hot wife, I gotta say, yeah.
Oh,
Super
wow.
hot wife. So then they both go to their separate bedrooms.
Yes, and he's all throwy and slammy at this point.
Right. I thought they were going to go to the couch, but no, they go to, I thought like, oh, he's going to the couch, she's going to the bedroom. Nope, they have separate bedrooms in this giant mansion that neither of them enjoy.
No, and that just the two of them live in. And this is kind of unrelated. It's not going to fit in at any particular point in this movie, but this movie takes place in Albany, Georgia. We meet Kirk Cameron's family. Everyone in this movie, except for Kirk Cameron, has a Southern accent. And they make no effort to explain why he doesn't. Why this guy who was born and raised in Albany, Georgia from Southern parents sounds like wherever the hell Kirk Cameron is from.
Yeah, they adopted a feral New Yorker and just...
I would have given anything to see this movie again only with Kirk Cameron trying to do a Southern accent the whole time.
Oh, that would have been magical.
highly
I would have given
improved it.
everything. It's just like, it's like a Superman story. "Well, son, a spacecraft that said Goodyear crashed in the backyard of Small and I. We pulled you out between 2 slices of Wisconsin cheese, and we figured, all right, we're gonna raise this boy. And it turned out he spoke super middle of the country dialect. We wanted you to feel like a normal person, but of course you're a crazy Christian, so we failed.
Oh boy, didn't they?
So then we cut to the firehouse, because we're about to have the Grease summer lovin' moment, where they're talking to their respective friends, and we could tell that the black couple have a good marriage. Because he says, I wrote this down, but we got a hot date on Friday night. And she goes, oh, is it a hot date now? And they're both like, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? So then they have their summer loving moment where he's like, she doesn't think I listen. And she's like, he doesn't listen. And he's like, and she says whatever he just said.
Yeah.
And then her friends are like, And again, none of these white people have any white friends.
I noticed they went with the 3/5 compromise on the breakdown of the white and the black friends on that one.
Oh, and then there's the one white friend that she has at the brunch scene, but she's acting black, which is really offensive and upsetting. Because all the black nurses are like, girl. And so her white friend is like, girl. Why am I in this movie? Oh, God. Oh, God, they're all around me. Just take it. Just take it. I think every time her co-stars walked on set, she would just throw their purse at them and run away. Start blowing her whistle.
Wow, this is going off the rails quick. All right, so that was the closest to clever I think that the movie ever got. Clearly, I mean, the movie was so bad that at certain points I was saying stuff to myself like, somebody had a book though on how to make movies. They do establishing shots and then they fade to the characters from those. They blur out the background. Sometimes they remember to do that, So there's some things that they didn't do wrong. The soundtrack is harrowing now.
This movie, much like God's Not Dead and some of the other ones, is obviously a movie that was written and acted in by crazy people, but was made by normal humans.
Yes.
Like, the guy holding the boom is not like, Jesus, take the boom! That's just Frank, right? And Frank's like, man, this shit's bullshit. But he doesn't write it. So he's just like, it's still across his shoulder. And it's like, I think Jesus is inside this pie. And you're like, sure, man. 28 an hour? Let's get some more takes in here. Let's do overtime. Oh, he wants to stop and pray? Great. That's a union break.
All right, now I believe we've reached the first time we get to see Kirk Cameron be a hero in the film. Of course, he's a firefighter, and as Heath said, the most dangerous fire district in all the world, Albany, Georgia.
It's terrifying.
Yes. And let's point out what causes this accident. 2 girls who are 50 are driving a car, and then 2 guys pull up next to them, and they're like, hey, we're going to Pizza Barn. You girls headed anywhere? And they say no, which is terrifying. Why are you in a car with no place to go? I've never just trolled around in a car, but sure. And then they're like, race you there. And then they get the alarm. Again, we see that there are only 4 firemen in the city.
Yep.
And 1 car has been mangled beyond belief. And the other car is on the tracks with a girl, quote unquote, trapped in it. The car is ripped wide open for the shot. She can very clearly get out of that car.
Yes.
She has a single droplet of blood on her forehead, and she's like, I can't get out of the car! Can't get out of the car! Please help me! Can't get out of the car! And I would just be like, ma'am, there's a large hole here. If you simply crawl out of the
directions, anywhere you want to go.
Literally any way except backwards into your seat.
And down.
Which is the direction. And so then 2 firemen come forward and single-handedly try to lift the car,
yes.
which, by the way, is not a thing.
It doesn't work. No.
Nobody helps. Nobody helps because a train is coming.
Yeah.
Nobody helps. And then finally,
at like 3 miles an hour, of course.
A soldier stepped forward, and we could tell he's a soldier because he's dressed.
Yes.
He has everything except the rifle and like an American flag and like a line of like, I just came from my fallen brother's funeral. I'll help you.
He finishes kissing a woman in the skirt. He just runs up there, yeah.
Right. Then 2 more men help, which allows them to move the car off of the tracks, which is the craziest way to try to get one person out of a car that's going to get hit by a train
Un-
I've ever seen.
Unless, of course, you don't have the money to run a train into a car in your budget, which they clearly did not.
Yeah. Or even to, like, have a full car. Because at no point did we... Every car in this movie is like a fucking Honda. No.
Well, you could tell that they were having trouble even getting fire trucks because after this first emergency, later in the movie, we get a second emergency, and they used the same goddamn shot of the two fire trucks pulling out of the station. The exact, precise same morning sun glint across the fucking lens shot for both of those. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Not huge budget. This was like Ed Wood budget.
So they move it, and then the black guy prays because everyone was safe. And I wrote, "Thank you, Lord, for putting those children in front of that train." Which is always, and he turns to a guy and he goes, "I broke my record for how close I can come to death and still live." And I wrote, "That's a weird record." Look at this. I'm going to put my face real close to this Wolverine. Okay, 2 inches. And then he turns and goes, "Don't tell my wife," to another fireman. It's like, what, that you're a fireman? She knows you're in danger. She's going to hear on the news about that car that almost got hit by a train.
Until the whole town came together and lifted it up off the tracks. Yes.
And he got slightly grazed on the back of his shoulder by the train.
By a train
Like,
that's
a little
clearly
bit.
going like 3 miles an hour. I mean, there's clearly they can't even make it look like anyone's in danger for the purposes of this shot.
The train stopped in the shot when they come
Right.
back to it, right there, like 10 feet after where the crash would have been.
Right. So they get back to the
fast can
house,
we
and
go?
then the other black guy goes, "I don't believe in God," and then just
Just
wanders
out
off
of
into the sunset. Never hear, we don't come back to that. That's not a thing. They're just, he's talking about it, and it's just like, they're just talking, and then he's like, "Are you a Christian?" And he's like, "I'm an atheist," or he's like, "I think we go into the ground. Goop, scoobity, doop, doop," and just poofs away like a Blathius genie. So then Kirk Cameron calls his dad to say that his marriage is falling apart. And Kirk Cameron's dad brings his mom. And this is a theme throughout this movie. It's such a heavy-handed theme that so doesn't pay off. But it's, "Why did you bring mom? I fucking hate you."
Yes.
No matter what this mom does, Kirk hates his mom. And his mom does not do anything crazy.
No.
She's like, "Hey, Kirk, we really hope your marriage makes it." And he's like, "Fuck off, Mom!" Through every moment of this movie.
Yeah, with just a whole lot of just kind of vague references to "I hate her" and "Gee, Dad, why did you ever stay with her? Mom's such a bitch" kind of stuff.
Right.
But like you say, it does pay off at the end. That there's actually a story arc. I mean, and I'm saying that because like there's so many things where there's just nothing. Like the Blathius that you were just talking about there just disappears, never shows back up. 90% of everything that happens in this movie never resolves to anything. There was the rookie, the guy that was the rookie, and they were sending him after the hose stretcher. He just never shows back. He shows up in a montage to try to open a fire hydrant, like the guy in the infomercial showing you how hard it used to be to make spaghetti before the Spaghetti-tron 2000 or whatever, and there's no story arc there. He never shows back up. Nothing pays off. At least the mom that Kirk Cameron is just an inordinate bitch to constantly, at least that seems to have some purpose in the film.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, really, just sorta, kinda. So then he and his dad, he screams at his mom, and then he and his dad take a walk to Giant Crucifix
Yes!
Hill. He's like, "What is this place?" "I don't know. It used to be a summer camp." "For what? For the KKK?" The weirdest. It's just logs gathered around a giant crucifix.
Yes.
His dad's like, "Well, I'm a Christian." And Kirk's like, "Dad, fuck off." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to mail you something," which is weird because he could have brought it with him.
Yeah,
He's
he
like,
was
"I'm-"
coming to talk about the marriage being in trouble after all.
Oh, and then we have a wacky comedy scene. This is,
Oh, God.
This is Hot Sauce Guy doing his dance in the mirror to himself. By the way, 3 movies in a row now where someone has a serial killer
Yes.
Another Buffalo Bill scene, absolutely.
where he's just like, "Oh, God, God." And his hitting on himself in the mirror is so terrifying. I will watch The Ring 8 times before I watch the 40-second clip of this guy just being like, "No, you look good. No, you look good." And then the black guy very clearly walks in the room. He's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And he immediately starts again, and the black guy turns the corner. He's like, "Are you doing something weird?" And he's like, "Come on, man, don't watch me when I'm doing my crazy serial killer podcast."
This is my time.
This is me time. Insane. Then the black guy glues the salt and pepper shakers together.
Yeah, because he,
That was
as you
profound.
said,
That was
speaks
profound.
only in platitudes.
Only in platitudes and weird metaphors. And he's like, "Now see, if you unglue those, you'll break them." And it's like, no, that's not how glue works. Can't unglue something that once it's been glued, because then your marriage will fall apart. And then he says the name of the movie. He says, "My marriage wasn't fireproof."
Yeah, they weren't exactly subtle. Again, they weren't subtle with it. Like, at the beginning of the movie, of course, they're putting out candles, and at the end, they're lighting candles. It was like that kind of heavy-handed symbolism throughout. I think that led me to maybe the worst line the second worst line in the whole movie. What was it he said after? He said, the marriage isn't fireproof, but if you don't look out, you could get burned.
Sometimes you get burned.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
It's the worst. So his dad mails him the book, which is based on the Christian book, The Love Dare, but he has handwritten it
Yes.
into a notebook for his son, which is crazy. And so it's like, he wrote it, but didn't you say it saved your marriage? So it's weird that it's handwritten into the book. That kind of comes back, but it's crazy. So he reads it. He reads it, by the way, on the floor in the dark, in the corner of his home. And the book basically, I want to take a moment to talk about this book.
Oh, please.
The only advice that this book has on marriage is do nice things.
Yes.
If you bring them a cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory, it'll solve the fact that you don't communicate and you don't eat pussy. Don't worry about it. Just try not to say anything mean for 24 hours. That was the first thing. I was like, try not to say cunt for 4 hours. You can do it, Matthew 12:14.
And he almost does it right away after that. He comes so close.
Yeah, he comes out and they're not talking because they're mad at each other, which is a healthy, communication is better, but it's not unhealthy to be like, "Hey, I need some time, let's not talk." And so he comes out and he's like, "Hey," and she says something that makes him mad, and he goes through a weird, "Why I oughta" moment behind her back, but it's impossible not to be like, "Fuck you," and then go beat up my garbage cans in front of my neighbor. But I want to also talk about her reactions to the gestures in this movie. Make no sense. Because we don't know. She's mad at him for not paying attention and not being nice. There's no she's constantly talking about how betrayed she's been and how hurt she is, but she's hurt and betrayed by not getting attention.
Well, and him looking at porn, boat porn.
Right. And him not feeling love. But he pours her coffee and he buys her these cheap flowers, and she's madder because of those things.
Yes.
In the montage of him being better. Him trying to work it out, be a better husband. That moment, every time she sees something he's done, she's like, "This fucking asshole.
Right.
Wow, it's garbage."
He's washed the dishes.
He pours the coffee for her, and he's like, "I poured your coffee for you." And she's like, "Oh, I don't want any coffee." And he's like, he throws everything in the house into the sink. And he's like, "Well, this, if you don't want coffee, this marriage is over."
That was the level of logic we were dealing with in this flick, yes.
Then they have the hot sauce drinking contest.
And they even do it with the reveal at the end, the one guy's bragging too much, so they bring out the hot sauce, and they bring out the special hot sauce that says Wrath of God on it, and they do the contest who can drink the hot sauce and the fastest. And after they do this whole bit, this whole just horrible attempt at comedy where the fat guy tries to drink the hot sauce, they actually make us sit through the reveal where he's like, "Well, if you'd replaced yours with tomato juice, you could have done it too."
G.I. Joe.
Right? Did they really feel as they were writing this out, they're not going to get that? They're going to think he really drank the hot sauce.
They're just going to think that Kirk Cameron, because he's so fucking awesome, could just
Of course he
all the
could.
kids in the audience are just going to be like, well, Kirk Cameron could drink hot sauce, and then they're going to go home, drink hot sauce, and shit the devil out of him. And then he literally has the wake up in the middle of the night moment where he starts screaming, where he's like, tomato juice! Man, there were consequences to that. Which, again, fiery bunghole. I
Yes.
get it. It's
Yes.
fun. It's quality. It's the best attempt at comedy.
It really was.
Like,
Pretty large.
I was so desperate for a laugh at that point in the movie that I was like, ha 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 ha. Sometimes you poison the people that you're friends with.
There's 39 more stupid pages in this thing.
Oh my
We're not
God.
even close to done.
So many times during this movie, I paused it and I was like, I cannot believe there's an hour left.
Yes. We did
Cannot
that, dude. We did that. I shit you not. At 17
I was about
minutes.
to say, we did 17. I think we had 21.
It's a 2-hour movie, and every 40 seconds, I would be like, oh my God, there's so much movie left. There's so much left.
So bad.
And then the nurses, so she's like, well, he's being really nice to me. Now, all of a sudden, like, she's like, oh, he's being really nice to me. And the nurses are like, he's buttering you up for a divorce.
Yes.
How does that help? What does
Don't-
that mean?
That's a crazy thing to say. It's like, my friend, her husband was sweet as sugar, and then she didn't get nothing. And it's like, that has nothing to do with divorce.
Right.
It's not how it
Handed her
works.
divorce papers that were like, by the way, I get to keep everything. And she was like, well, he has been real nice.
Like, how does that factor into anything?
What kind of, what laws are on the book? Like, well, can you tell me, ma'am, how nice has he been over the last 3 weeks? I don't know, pretty nice. No contest.
She made you coffee? Did he make you coffee?
Oh.
That counts even if you didn't drink it.
I wrote during this scene about 3 times, how do people think divorce works that wrote this movie? That's true, too, because throughout this movie, handing someone divorce papers is magical.
Yes.
He's like, I have a meeting with my lawyer on Thursday. And he's like, no! Like, you have to sign the papers, man. Like, she doesn't just get to divorce. She doesn't magically like, boop, me and my lawyer divorced you.
And then, of course, because somebody was reading the How to Make a Movie handbook as they wrote this, this was the proper moment in the film for another action beat, I do believe. So we get this, the second hero scene. This is the burning house scene where, again, the budget of the film didn't actually allow him to set a house on fire. So they had to show us a house that had, like, a couple fires going in the windows, but clearly had no structural damage and just some smoke billowing out. Like, from definitely, like, behind the house, they had, like, a tire that they were burning or
Close up
something
of a
like
Lego
that.
house burning at
Oh,
one
yeah,
point.
And there's this crazy moment. It's just a strange, I don't know why it was written in, where it's like, is everything okay with the house? I was like, yeah, it's fine, totally fine. Our daughter's at our friend's house. And then the girl comes over. She's like, is Lacey okay? And she says, what are you talking about? She's with you. And she's like, no, she went home. And then everyone loses their goddamn mind. It doesn't affect the movie. It's just a weird creation
Yeah.
of tension because it's just like she's not there. And everyone, including the little girl, all of a sudden starts going like, ah!
Yes.
tearing their loins and ripping their sackcloth and ashes. And the dad just tries to jump into the fire. And the reason why the black guy can't go into the fire with Kirk Cameron is because he's holding him
To
down.
tackle the dad.
It's like, go, Kirk, you get him. I'm going to beat up this other black guy. Stop trying to save your daughter, man.
Yes, he did seem to think that he was just going to wander right in there. But no, of course, Kirk goes in and saves the day by axing his way through the floor because he didn't want to axe his way through the window, I guess.
And the attic
Well,
had exploded.
Yes.
The attic exploded in a mushroom cloud out of nowhere for no reason.
Breaks the window. And he's like, well, that's all I can do. Better go through the floor.
Right.
Here's this indestructible window.
That will hold up to a fireman's
All
axe.
I've got is an axe. I better start hacking this floor.
So yeah, that was a fun little diversion from whatever the hell was going on. And then we come to, and we've already kind of hinted on this one, but what I consider to be the greatest scene ever created, where he has to struggle with his porn addiction. Now, she's caught him watching porn at one point in this movie. She came in and he's looking at porn on the thing. He doesn't even have his dick out. So he's
Right, he's
just
not jerking out. He's
looking
just
at the
watching
porn.
porn.
It's like he's got an addiction to cooking heroin and leaving it on the spoon.
Right, exactly. He's just
Which is
he's
weird,
just-
but not that destructive
Again,
ultimately, yeah.
if
Ultimately,
his porn is just clicking on wanna see, and then
Yeah.
that thin, then that strong 6 shows you like her thigh. I don't think I could bring myself to jerk off to that either. If you're halfway through Boats and then someone's just like, I don't know, want to see my tits, I'd be like, sure. But I'm not pulling my dick out for that. You know, I don't burn calories.
But now they had to find a way, these clever filmmakers, to represent the moment where he overcomes his porn addiction. His finger hovers over the want to see ad, and he decides not to. He doesn't just X out of it and get some some pop-up blocker software to add to his computer. He goes the full regalia, takes his Commodore 128 out into the yard with a baseball bat and goes all Office Space on it. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. Rudolph is out there to see the whole thing again.
Again, their movie. It's like a what is the what's the thing about the two guys that were in Hamlet? Tom Stoppard.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern?
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They're like the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of this movie. He goes inside and he's like, he's smashing up the fucking computer. Oh my God, what a nutbag. Don't go out there anymore. He's going to hit you. That's a good idea.
See, this is how uncultured I am. You guys are using shit from Hamlet. I would have used the old men from the Muppets.
Yeah, Old Men from the Muppets is good too. It's
That's
crazy
pretty damn cultured.
It's also
Sell it
it's
short.
also not like self-control if you destroy the object. Like not covering your neighbor's wife doesn't count if you kill your neighbor's wife. Don't worry, honey. I overcame my addiction to porn. I killed all the actresses in Los Angeles because I choose you. Look, I got you nice flowers this time. And then he sees the thing. And again, she turns to him, and I just wrote all of my notes for this scene where you really should get a divorce. They should get a divorce.
Yes.
Get a divorce and find people they like. Because she turns to him, she's like, Kurt, or whatever his real name is in the movie. She's like, I want you to know I don't love you. And I'm like, wow, you should get a divorce.
Yes, but the
Get
whole
a divorce.
fucking message of this movie is no matter how miserable, the conversation he has with his dad is all about how miserable his mom and dad were all throughout Kirk's upbringing or whatever. And the message of this movie very clearly is no matter how miserable you are, do not get divorced.
Except for the good black guy who did get divorced
And then wound up with a
and
better
wound up
marriage,
with a better
yeah.
woman. Yeah.
He's
So
now living and he's like, Ma, I got divorced. And he's like, you did? And he's like, yes, and now I'm very happy. Back to how you shouldn't get a divorce.
Yeah, right.
And so he calls his dad, and this is, again, magical dad, calls his dad, and he's like, Dad, and he goes, this is when it gets hard. And it's like, how? How did you know? How do you know that this is the day? There's just every day 20 in the love dare. She turns to you and she's like, go fuck yourself. Which I wouldn't blame her for. If I did the love dare on my girlfriend, I'd make it to day 3 and she'd be like, what are you doing? You're doing something weird. Are you mad? Stop pouring coffee. Notice I'm not saying anything about what a cunt you are. 23 hours and 12 minutes. I'm not calling you a bitch. So he and his dad meet up, and Dad lays him with the Jesus talk. And this is just, again, a moment of where a character expresses reasoned beliefs about salvation. And the other character is just like, nope, not listening. So he's like, Dad, I save people. I'm a fireman. And he's like, God doesn't judge by our standards. He uses his standards. Crazy standards.
Yes.
Standards about who you think is magic and who you think is not magic. Not whether or not you save children from a burning building.
No.
But whether or not you think the right name in your head before you go night-night.
And, of course, whether you don't jerk off to internet porn.
And then it's the scene with the black guy with the
Oh, wait.
divorce, which again,
Now, before we quite get into that, I have to talk about the probably most heavy-handed moment in the entire movie, where Kirk Cameron is bitching about his wife while Dad's telling him how great Jesus is, and Kirk says of his wife, "How can you keep loving someone who keeps rejecting you?" And as he's saying this, Dad has circled around now to this giant fucking Ku Klux Klan
So
cross.
because they don't show it right away.
No,
Though.
exactly.
He's just subtly standing next to a stick.
Yeah,
and then they pan up to the whole.
And it's this ridiculous cross taking up the whole fucking screen with Dad's head just down on the right corner, like very awkward in the framing of the shot and everything like that. Sun behind the cross. That's the kind of it was like Quentin Tarantino subtle.
Right. And he's like, don't you see that that's what you're doing to God,
Yes.
son? And that, of course, blows Kirk's asshole out the back of his neck. He's like, what?
I'm rejecting him the same way that she's rejecting me. He even says at one point when he's talking to his buddy about the love there, he's like, I didn't do the praying parts.
Right. It's crazy because he's like, so his neck, he's all blown, he's all surprised by that, by which, of course, any reasonable person would have been like, don't you see you're rejecting God? That's not what we're talking about. But, all right. Did you notice how big this lowercase t is? So then now that he's saved, he goes to his black friend, because this is when he's about to reveal that he was divorced, and he goes, hey, man, the religion thing, I'm in. And he's like, are you in or are you in? And he's like, I'm in. Are you in or are you in?
Really?
I'm in. And then they hug, and it's like, I'm like, what is happening? I'm so confused.
It very much like if you had the sound down, you would have thought he'd finally agreed to anal.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reaction you want. When someone comes into the room and is like, I'm in, that's exactly what it is. It's like, okay, we can do butt stuff. We can do butt stuff. Oh, we can do butt stuff. No, we can do
Do
like.
you really want to have some fun? Yeah.
I wrote down, people are acting like marriage is a baby that could die. This entire movie is just one being like, oh no, the marriage.
Yeah, like
we gotta save the marriage. It's like, no.
like this
Again,
random old lady at the hospital that works with the wife sees her flirting with McWinky pants or whatever.
Oh,
I have
disapproving
so many
church
notes
lady.
about this woman.
Disapproving church lady was not happy with the situation.
That was the
I
most
wrote, this
frightening-
old woman, she prays like she's having a seizure. She goes, excuse me. It's not, by the way, I have Christian friends who pray when they eat, and they don't go like, oh, one sec. They're not like mid-sentence, and they're like, anyway, so I was eating a sandwich, and then I wrote, this woman's milky blank eyes will haunt my nightmares forever.
Right.
And I want her shirt. She's wearing the most insane shirt and speaking. I don't know who this person was. I feel like she picked the right amount on Kickstarter. That's how bad. She sits down and she's like, honey, if I could just tell you what I don't mean to offend, staring straight into the camera.
Yes.
Her lips moving as she reads her lines out loud. She's just like reading the woman's lines along with her, just like, and then she leaves and she just holds perfectly still.
Yeah,
just like
with her Siberian husky eyes. It's terrifying.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a really horrifying, because they like foreshadow that when she sees her flirting with him or whatever, and the camera just lingers on this person who has not been introduced in the movie in any way.
And is never introduced.
No, she does not have a name.
Just
She
the
sits there and
camera
she's
just
like, hi,
lingers.
Susan. And we're like, oh, I guess that's fucking Susan.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, because I teased this a bit earlier, that when we're in the hospital, that's where we get my favorite line in the entire movie. That it's one of these establishing shots where we have to be reminded that she works in a hospital, and we catch her in media res with this conversation that she's having with this doctor, and the final line of it is, oh, and congratulations on your cancer research award.
I wrote that down, too. Research award.
Oh, what?
Cancer. Researching all that cancer, I guess. We work in a hospital. You can tell because we have the coats. You never see a fucking patient either. It's just doctors, nurses, and Kirk Cameron who gets cured for his burns.
Yes, and still loves his wife enough to threaten the guy who's flirting with her with violence.
Oh, yeah, we're not there yet. That's pretty amazing. So she gets sick. So after the crazy,
Oh, yes.
there's a jock jam montage where I don't know who paid for that song to be in the movie, but out of nowhere, it's just a montage of him praying and her being mad. And in the meantime, there's just this like, hold me now, I take a blood down, bound and a bound to them. And so he's praying in the lotus position, which is very upsetting.
Right.
And he's like sitting on a tree branch looking at the sun. She gets sick, and he brings her
Yes.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, absolutely.
Because that's just when you need when you're sick. Chicken and soda.
Chick-fil-A gets rid of fever. Yeah.
Apparently.
Prayer does not. Prayer does not.
And then so that's like the turning moment because Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
That's like the turning moment, and she's like, I don't know that I can trust you anymore. And I wrote, what did he do? How does fighting make you stop trusting someone? How? None of this makes sense. What did he do? I hate this movie. Forgive him for what? Liking boats? I hate this movie. Not to mention, she goes to the hospital the first time. We have to touch on the doctor, her relationship.
Yes, of course.
She goes to the hospital and she finds out that someone has bought a fancy Megatron wheelchair and a fancy bed for her stroke mom. And she walks away mid-sentence from this woman. This woman's like, yes, someone already paid. And she just wanders away. Which she does again later in the movie. Later on, she finds out that it was Kirk Cameron who gave the money, not the doctor she's been flirting with. And she's like, oh, no, it was your husband. And she just, again, turns around. And I wanted that character so badly to be like, hey, ma'am, fuck you.
Right. Or at least to say, isn't this how all the trouble started in the first place, that you didn't stay to the end of my fucking sentence, you stupid bitch?
So she thinks that it's Dr. McHandsome, who turns out to be married, but that's never culminates in anything.
No,
But it's actually Kirk used his boat money to buy her mom a magic chair.
Yes.
Oh, and then he takes her, they're made up, and he takes her to Crystal Lake to introduce her to Jesus. He takes her to Big Cross to make circle plates. And he's like, I want to introduce you. Jesus is the thing. And she's like, I want to do the love dare. And it's so fucking.
Oh, dude. It was like, unless I find out later that at some point Nazis like actually bludgeon Jews to death with cameras, this is the worst thing ever done with a camera.
Yeah.
Like, unless they were actually used physically as weapons in the Holocaust, this is the worst thing that a camera's ever been used for. But yes, the love dare does make up for it. And you were talking about the second scene where she finally finds out that it was Kirk that gave the exact $24,000 that came up in the movie twice. Once is how much money he had in the bank for his boat, and once is how much money she needed for the fucking wheelchair. So if you didn't see that coming, congratulations, you got to sleep through this damn thing. But that brings us to the final makeup scene where she shows up at the firehouse.
Right. Which is crazy because he comes in and he's like, hey, man, your wife's here. She's not wearing any shoes, by the way. Weird. I was really upset by the fact that she wasn't wearing shoes. I was like, did she walk there without shoes? Did she drive there shoeless? Did she come with shoes and then take her shoes off to be like, I should look nice. I'm going to take my shoes off.
He could be no more surprised by the news that his wife was there than if she had been like dead for years and shown up as a reanimated corpse when his friend
and he says her name. He's like, Meredith? Like, is that you? I was like, yeah, man, that's her.
Why would it not be?
That is 100% her. The weirdest. And he looks like a corpse. So much of this movie, he looks like a dead body. It's really. And then we got the final revelation after they're all happy and made up, and he's talking to his dad about Jesus, and his dad is like, son, even though I write the book in my handwriting, which brings back the handwriting, why he copied an entire book to a notebook like a crazy person. I wrote it in my handwriting because you wouldn't believe that I used a book unless it was written in my handwriting. Right. Wait a minute, you didn't read this book. You didn't copy it out into a notebook separately. Shenanigans, Dad.
But it was actually,
your mother did the love dare to me. At which point, Kirk Cameron sprints back to his mom and he's, I didn't know. And she's like, it's okay, honey. It's okay. And I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't understand anything that happens.
I think I can elucidate this one for you, because when he walks into the door stop being a bitch to mom. Because, like you said, it was just completely out of fucking left field every time he was a bitch to his mom for no reason in the movie. And then he comes in at the end and he's got the, I shit you know, he's got the, like, the shoulder slumped, I just skinned my knee walking to mom to apologize thing. And as he embraces her, I realized that we were watching old lady porn and this was the money shot. Like, that's who this movie is for. It's for the old ladies. And the idea that the movie ends with Kirk Cameron realizing that he's just been taking his old mother for granted. We should have seen that coming. That should be a perfectly natural outcome. I didn't realize until the money shot that you were making us watch old lady porn. Well done, sir. That is like the greatest Rickroll of all time.
Because it is old lady porn, because even the love dare is made for old women. It's not made for human beings who still have sexual lives. It's just like, well, what would I like in my marriage? I don't know. Maybe he could stop saying mean shit for 24 hours. Maybe do something nice for me. I don't know. Maybe not hit me in the face. Just go for a tummy tuck every now and then. You know, just a nice little rib shot there. It's so old lady porn. This is a revelation. Even the things that, like, yeah, because they don't know what porn is.
No, and
I bet porn is when you stare at the computer and there's a vixen staring out at you with a bedroom eyes, and you're just like, yeah.
And of course, the old ladies think it's perfectly natural that the way to overcome that is to destroy the computer, because they don't know that there are other things you can do other than stare at boats.
They don't know where the off button is. They have to call some Indian guy. I would like to destroy my devil computer. I'm sorry, ma'am. I've been on hold for 20 minutes trying to destroy this devil computer. There's a woman popping out at me from this boat site saying, I don't know what she wants me to see. But I know it's not the light of the Lord.
All right. So, do you think...
You always forgot, there's one nice moment in this movie. At the end, on top of their wedding cake, because they were now their view,
yes.
is a salt and pepper.
You got us.
And I was like, hey.
That was almost clever for a second. Yes, and by the way, this is when they get remarried, and they actually have the priest stop and say, but this time it's with Jesus.
Yeah, this time, this marriage is not like the last time where, I don't know, they did some bullshit about loving each other. This time, they're all in love with the same dead Palestinian. So it's gonna be fine. Don't worry. And everyone's like, yay! Your love is based on mutual delusions. It's gonna be great.
That's healthy.
Make sure you don't call her a cunt for 24 hours. I learned the secrets to love.
So now, other than not calling your lady friend a cunt for 24 hours, are there any other life lessons that you feel like we should take away from this partial birth abortion of a movie, Eli?
Yes. One very important one, because he says it. He says, it's not about your feelings. Christian, I have a section of my notes called Christian marriage advice. Christian marriage advice. Doing nice things in silence makes everyone forgive everyone. Christian marriage advice. Ignore your feelings and don't communicate. Christian marriage advice. The only person you should love more than your spouse is an imaginary wizard in the sky.
Yes. It's very important.
Sport stuff.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this was a really fun one. Holy shit, what a test it was. Lucinda walked into the room. She didn't watch this one with us. She walked into the room, I believe, during the fat guy Buffalo Bill putting the lotion in the basket, I'd fuck me moment, and just stared, like, jaw agape for a second. I'm like, this is the best thing that's happened in this movie so far.
Yeah, we actually liked that scene. She didn't get a good picture of how bad.
Yeah, it's a moment of peace. If the next hour and 50 minutes had just been that guy in a mirror being like, ooh, you want a little nipple pinch? Just a little, go. Oh, don't you come, bad boy. I would have been like, yeah, that's better than Fireproof. That is actually better. You should watch this movie. It's like 10 minutes of really terrible acting. And this guy just pinches his nipples in a mirror for like an hour and 50 minutes. But don't worry, because it's not a weird movie about love dares.
Oh,
and
God.
It's so indicative of, like, not understanding relationships of communication.
Right.
That it's a love dare.
Yeah.
That it's like, What kind of pussy doesn't do the love dare, huh? Are you ready for the love dare? Are you? Or are you too scared like a little bitch? I know that whoever titled Love Dare is playing on like the latent fear, like gay fear of like, I'm not afraid of any dare. I'll love my wife. I love her super hard. Give me that there book.
Yes.
What's it say? Okay, I can't slap her in the mouth. Got it. Check.
Not
Day
afraid
one.
to not
Good.
smack
I'm manly enough to not slap her for a day.
All right, now I believe we are about a month away from the theatrical release of Do You Believe, brought to you from the makers of God's Not Dead.
I'm so excited.
Eli, are you ready for this one?
I'm so excited. I've just been tweeting the Do You Believe people dick pics, just slowly growing harder until just the day of Do You Believe. Just me and 500 Mexicans in that movie theater. Just them clapping at all the wrong moments. I'm so excited. Just 2 large popcorn all by myself.
Excellent, sir. Well, until then, thank you for your humorous masochism, sir.
Oh, I can't wait.